Welcome again, and we're continuing in our series called In the Beginning and the Development. I wanted to share with you this part, which we won't be too long, but it'll be interesting if you understand it. Abraham and Abimelech, did you say it is? I might have trouble getting through to that because Abimelech is, easier for me. But anyhow, Abimelech. As we go into it, as you know, we started from the beginning in Genesis, and we started at the inception of life, which you know as Adam. However, we understand, which we've done in the past, that actually what is referred to here is Atom, and the taking of the rib from Adam in order to multiply the species was nature's way of discussing the taking of an electron from an atom to cause creative power. And so the life has gone on from there, and then we've watched the development of consciousness, the development of the human mind as part of this, and it gets to the point here of being extremely interesting when you understand that Abraham did not exist as a person, Abimelech does not exist as a person, but both of them are you. Both of them are your mind. Both of them are your consciousness. Both of them are the thought processes that go through you. And as we begin then to understand that, we see something that reoccurs in this particular story that we covered a few weeks ago. But there's a different outcome to it. And once again, if you listen to it, you realize that it's about you. It's about me. It's about what goes on inside of us. It takes us back to the part of Genesis, if you remember, where Abraham had his wife Sarah and tried to pass her off as his sister. Okay? There's a very psychological reason for this. And remember, all this is allegory. The reason for this is, in metaphysics, the word wife, okay, means emotions. The word sister means spirit. And here was the point, that what we perceive many times to be spirit, which is the sister, is actually emotions, which is the wife. In this particular case that we covered some time ago, Abraham tricked the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh did not realize that he had somebody's wife, the emotional nature. He thought he had somebody's sister, which is the spiritual nature, and he intercoursed. And all kinds of trouble happened. All kinds of plagues befell the Pharaoh. And what was being said psychologically, and understand that this Bible is not a Bible in a spiritual or a religious sense. It is a document for mature people who are at a point of growing up in their lives and wish to understand about themselves. That's why it's allegorical. And what's simply being said here is that you have got to be very careful, because when you start working within yourself, many times that which you think is spirit is actually your own emotions. You think this is coming from God, it's actually coming from you. You think this is coming from God, it's actually coming from a preacher. It's coming from a teacher. It's coming from a church. And so what happens then, and what this ancient metaphysical Eastern document is saying, is that when you start intercoursing, when you start relating, and you start working with your own emotional nature, thinking that's spirit, you're going to have a lot of problems. And all kinds of hell is going to erupt deep within yourself. And this is the prime cause of problems today. This is the prime cause. It's always been the prime cause of war. You'll see nations will march off to war with a banner of God. Say, God is going to give us the victory. All the time. Has nothing to do with God. Has to do with their own emotions. All the time you see them on television, and they're jumping up and down, and they're jumping over chairs, and they're screaming and yelling and saying, I feel the spirit in this place. No, they don't feel the spirit in this place, because spirit can't be felt. What they're touching is their own emotional nature. And this story here is the fact that when Pharaoh, representing that part of your mind, intercourses with the emotional nature, thinking that it is spirit, all kinds of terrible things start to happen. And here we get into a very same situation with a different outcome. And that's what they do in the ways of the writings of the East. They take the same stories, they give it a little different flavor, you see a different outcome. See? So here then we had the story of Abraham passing off his wife as his sister, and the reason he did this was because if according to the scriptures, if they knew that Sarah was his wife, they would have killed him and taken her. But this way, thinking that it's his sister, they just take her and leave him alone. Okay? So now we get into a situation which is on page 15 in those little Bibles that you've got there. It's in Genesis chapter 20. And there's a little difference in the way the story acts itself out, but it's the same story with little variations. Genesis chapter 20, verse 1 to 2. And Abraham, look, verse 2, Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech took Sarah. So here once again, he's passing off Sarah as his sister. Now here we get a situation where this is talking not about Abimelech, it's not talking about Abraham, it's not talking about old people in a book, it's talking about you. What's going on inside of you that you perceive as coming from God? Is it coming from God or is it coming from you? Is it coming from your spirit or is it coming from your emotional nature? Because if it's coming from your emotional nature, then it's going to get you in a lot of trouble. It's going to cause you a lot of grief. It has already. That's why you're sitting here. You can look outside and look at all the horror. You've had churches all over this country teaching the Bible, singing the songs. There's Muslim churches, there's Buddhist churches, there's Hindu churches, there's Christian churches, there's Jewish churches, and all they do and all they've ever done throughout the entire essence of creation is lob shells at one another. That's all they've done. Who's going to shoot the quickest? Who's going to shoot the first? Whoever's got the best aim, God is on his side. And so here we have a situation where the story says that Abraham is passing Sarah off as his sister. Simply meaning you're Abimelech, now you're looking at that which is your emotional nature. You're going to perceive her as your spiritual nature. But the difference in this story is that Abimelech's response to Sarah is going to be different than Pharaoh's. Here is a point that we're going to look. This is pure allegory. This is not true. There never was an Abimelech. There never was an Abraham. There never was this happened. There never was a Sarah. There never was all of these people. You don't have to worry about all of that stuff. You can just wash that away because they're all you. Say, this is a psychology book. And we've left it into the hands of nincompoops who teach psychology that is symbolism and spiritual teachings of the East. They teach it literally to people and they call it religion. It has nothing to do with what is religion. Religion's ridiculous. Religion is what? Nobody knows. I believe. You believe in what? I believe in God. How could you believe in God? You don't know anything about a God. But do you believe in yourself? Do you believe you've got to grasp on something that you can take? You've got to hold to something that is real. You've got to start, first of all, understanding yourself before you can understand anything called God, before you can understand anything called nature. And that's what we're talking about, see. In this story, Pharaoh intercourses with Sarah, and all kinds of terrible trouble happens. But in this part of the story that we're in now, Abimelech represents that part which realizes something is phony here. Something is wrong here. Something doesn't make any sense here. There's vibes. Did you ever go in someplace and I'm getting bad vibes? You ever go in some places, something just doesn't seem right? That's Abimelech. That's you. Something, and then he's looking at this thing, and what are you sitting here for now? What are you sitting here looking for somebody as revolutionary as me, and you're sitting here on a Sunday morning when you could be in a church singing Amazing Grace, you could be there with somebody with robes on, you could be there with stained glass, you could be there with people singing out of print. What are you sitting here listening to all of this radical stuff that comes out of my mouth because there's vibrations in you saying something is wrong? You know what you've been doing? You've been messing around with somebody else's wife. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what you've been doing. And you thought it was the sister. Inside of yourself, you have a wife, which is your emotional nature. You have a sister, which is your spiritual nature. And you've been messing around with the wife instead of messing around with the sister. Messing around might not be a good word, but I mean, I'm trying to talk to you as you talk in this day and age. But there is a warning here. Now watch the warning. Look at Genesis chapter 20, where we were. Verse 3. God came to Abimelech in a dream and said, look, you're a dead man. For the woman that you have, she's a man's wife. In other words, you're going to keep intercoursing with your own emotional nature, and you're going to go over the cliff. You're going to die. You're going to destroy yourself. You're going to destroy your family. You're going to destroy everything that you've ever touched because you cannot work out of the realms of your emotional nature. You've got to work out of the realms of your spiritual nature. Do you see what bedlam preachers and ministers of the church have caused? Because what have they said? They have said a wife must be subjected to her husband. That's what it says. But they do not understand the metaphysical language of the East. The word wife means the emotions. The word husband means the mind. And what is being said in metaphysical terms in the hidden meanings of the dark sayings of the old is that the emotions must be subjected to the renewed mind. But if you don't know that, you're going to tell some lady that gets beat up and some bum that beats her over the head and says, they go into the church, well, pastor, well, you know, the scripture says that you must return, you know, let him have another shot at you, you know, say maybe the other side. And this is what they do. That's not what it's meant to be. And that's, like I said earlier, that never will be that way again. So here in this story, Abimelech is visited by God who said, Sarah is not what you think it is. Somebody better visit us. Somebody better visit you, because inside of you there's a little saying that says, a little voice that says, that which you think is spiritual is actually your own emotions, and it's going to get you in a lot of trouble. It's not going to lead you anywhere. Now look at verses 4 and look at verses 5. In verses 4, look what it says. Abimelech had not come near her. In other words, you have gone back to that which is the meditational instinct within you. You have gone back to that which is the spiritual instinct within you. And then in verse 5, Abimelech says, didn't he say she's my sister? And she said, he's my brother? And I'm innocent, but I didn't realize this. How many times have you gone to churches? And how many times have you turned on preachers and teachers and they told you this is God? And you said, yeah, it must be. And you sang the songs and you gave the money and you did all of these things. And then one day you said, this is wrong. It's not right. There's something powerfully wrong with this. But I didn't realize I was tricked. I was deceived into thinking that this was God. I had no idea. I didn't realize this. Who told you this? Remember when the book of Genesis, what did God say? You remember Adam and Eve? You got two English people running around in this ancient garden with no clothes on. They don't know they're naked until a snake tells them. This is amazing. I saw them on television yesterday. You know what they were talking about? Getting creation science into the schools. This is the basis of it. A talking snake telling two people they don't have any clothes on. What is that down there? Well, I didn't notice it. Thank God for the snake. There's a talking snake. We're going to put this in school. This is going to be part of the curriculum. This will prove it, wouldn't it? Talking snake. So here we have a situation then where Abimelech represents that part of you which is finally wising up. Do you know how long you've been messing around with your emotions and how long? You know, I'm still messing around with my emotions. Do you realize it? I have an affair with my emotions quite regularly. And you know the book is true. It screws your head up. Doesn't it? Huh? You've got to go and have an affair with your sister. That sounds incestual, doesn't it? Remember what we got last week? It is. Incest is extremely important when you're dealing with spirit. Incest, the father. Who's the father? God. Intercourses with his daughter. Who's the daughter? Mary. Who's the child? Jehoshua, Jesus, child of incest. Why? Because it all happens inside of here. It doesn't happen outside there. It means that your mind must intercourse with your spirit, and the child that will be born within you will be the child of promise that will take the burdens of life off of your shoulders. Maybe if somebody starts to understand this stuff, we'll get to a point where little Amber will be safe in this world. She's not now. She's not now. In Genesis chapter 20, verse 6, God said to him, I know you did this in the integrity of your heart, and I withheld you from sinning because I prevented you from touching her. In other words, there is something now inside of you, and that's why you're sitting in this room, because you are withheld from touching it. Oh, come on. Understand what I'm talking about. We get emotional. I get emotional all the time. It's not talking about that. The point is, you are no longer looking for your direction from your emotions. You're looking for direction from your spirit, and that's why you come in here on Tuesdays or Thursdays and sit on the floor and meditate. It's the only possible way. Do you know what a guy said on Christian television? I was watching these guys are forecasters or prophets or whatever, the bizarre stuff. He said, something is happening on this earth, and it's demonic. You know what? Anyone that does not understand a God sees it as a devil. Huh? This fool would probably see this bombardment of Jupiter as demons throwing rocks. Because they don't understand science. They don't understand anything other than what they can coagulate. Is that a word in their head? So here's the warning with the involvement, again, is shown in Genesis chapter 20, verse 7. Restore the man his wife, and you shall live. But if you don't restore her, you're going to die. In other words, what that's saying is stay away from intercoursing with your emotions. Your emotions will intercourse with you. Your emotions jump all over you. Your emotions are constant. Your emotions are very necessary. Your emotions give you the ability to do what I do and scream and yell and jump and run around and act crazy, and that's fun, and get up and dance, and like Jimmy Buffett. Last night we went and saw Delbert McClinton. It's all emotions. I love to do all of that stuff. That's emotions. I love to go to a ball game. I love to go to the beach. I love to go out and have dinner. That's all emotions. Emotions are wonderful, see. But we've got to learn how to control them and drive the emotions instead of the emotions driving us. And that's what the book is saying. Hey, Abimelech, hey, that part of your mind, watch out. I was going to say something worse. Don't mess around with your emotions. Get your direction from your spirit. Don't touch Sarah. Okay? Now it's interesting. So this is the part of you that's sitting here now. The reason you're in listening to this crazy person who's standing up here is because something has touched you, and you are alert to the fact that you do not want to get the direction. You do not want to intercourse with your emotions. And now you look at religion, now you look at the system, now you look at the governments that created all of these monstrosities, and you turn around in Genesis chapter 20, verse 10, verse 9, Abimelech calls to Abraham and says, what did you do this for? Why have you done this to me? And Abimelech said to Abraham, what did you say that you've done something like this? This is what you should stand up for. When is somebody going to have the guts? You got people screaming all over the place about violence against women. And I've read to you in the Bible when Moses says to these soldiers of his, look, soldiers, I want you to go into the town. I want you to kill all the little children. And I want you to kill all the women who are not virgins. And the women who are virgins, you can take them to yourself. That's violence against women. When you have a Bible that says, bring the lady out to the center of the town, give her a pelvic examination, and if she doesn't pass, bring the guys out and they'll hit her in the head with rocks. That's violence against women. When is somebody going to have the guts to stand up, shove this Bible under the nose of these people and say to them, why did you do this? Why did you teach us this stuff? Why did you deceive us? You're the ones that instigated violence against women. You're the ones that instigated degrading of women. You're the ones that broke up the family by thinking that women had to be submissive to men. Oh, it says in the Bible, it says in the New Testament. Do you know what it says, ladies? That if you want to have information about the Spirit of God, you are not allowed to talk. You are to ask the Godfather. And the Godfather will say, I don't have time for you. I'll tell you later. When I get ready, I'll tell you. Shut up your face. Go make it a pasta. You know? But you know what's funny about it? It's true. It's as true as it can be. And you know what, ladies? The ladies of the universe had said, hey, fakakta. It's over. Thank God. You know the funny thing? Evidently, God is a girl. Was this great when they come up and this guy Peter was at the gate and he said, God will see you now, and she comes out. Hi, Rocco, Dominic. You want to come in? Yes, ma'am.
also instill such fear. If their rules and regulations aren't followed to a T, you are damned. And that upsets me. Who are they? Because they're all Fakatka, you know, and they're saying, you are damned. You don't follow what I tell you.
Let's go into one of those traditional churches next Sunday morning. I'll get you to see if you can speak for a few minutes.
Oh,
But you see, what you're saying is true. That's absolutely right. That's a problem. Yes, ma'am.
I went to Catholic school, and I remember walking home and thinking that my mother, my father, everybody I loved was going to go to hell because they didn't go to church every Sunday.
I know that. I went to church, and I thought I was going to go to hell because I ate a hot dog at the ball game. But anyhow, those are the stories. But see, you can be free now. You can say, I don't have to believe that stuff anymore. I will not believe that stuff anymore. I will not all of that stuff that you're talking about is when Sarah, the wife, is passed off as Sarah, the spirit. And the emotional nature then is part of our life. Now look at what Abimelech, he comes up and he says, what'd you do this for? That's what you said. Why did you do? And you get some cockamamie excuse. And I'm going to have to erase because I want you to see how important this is metaphysically. Okay? I want you to see. Hey, there's a lot of you that may sit there, or some of you that may sit there have never been here before. So, what right do you have to say this? Because I have no right to say this. I have no right to simply come up here and stand up here and tell you this stuff because, hey, this may be my idea, not necessarily God's idea. But what if I show you that it is God's idea and not my idea? Somebody tell me what page Galatians chapter 24 or Galatians chapter 4 is on. Tell me what page it's on. Come on, hurry up because they want to get back and have Ziti at the house for the dedication. Yeah. Page 952. Would you look at it? Look at Galatians chapter 4. Look at verse 22. You there? Page, what is it, 952? 953. It is written that Abraham, this is the story we're talking about right now. All right? Now, look at verse 24. Which things are an allegory? You know what the Bible just said? It's all symbolism. Now you have to say symbolism of what? It's symbolism of this that's in between your ears. Symbolism of your mind. So that's why I do what I do. So we get to the point where you ask the question now, why had you been deceived? All that while that you were praying and kneeling and crying out to God and saying, oh God, do this, go God, do that. It's all emotions. You didn't know. Now you turn to religion and say, why didn't you tell me the way that you get is that way of the Spirit, that way of that which is meditation? Why didn't you deceive me? What's this all about? And look at verse 12, chapter 20. Go back to page 15. Look what Abraham says. Well, I thought that, you were going to kill me. And verse 12, yet she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. Watch. She is the daughter of father, but not the daughter of mother. When you begin to understand, watch me, watch what I'm going to do. I want you to see what's important for you to understand. The word daughter means the desires of the emotions. The word daughter means emotional desires. Okay? The word father means the mind. What Sarah is are the emotional desires of the mind. The word daughter here is the emotional desires of the mother. The mother is spirit. She is the emotional desires of the mind. She is not the emotional desires of the spirit. See? And that's what it means. Oh, you say, oh, how do you know that's what those words mean? If I say to you, Dominic, why don't you lady sat in the front row? Yeah, the rest of them bailed out, Dominic. Well, next time you'll know better. Never stick around after the water's poured. Listen, if I say to you, Dominic, let's go shoot the bull, you and me. What are you going to do?
Are we talking an animal?
Okay, let's go to another one. How about... Now, but right away, we're going to have a conversation. I say, Dominic, let's shoot the bull. We're going to have a conversation. That's a hidden meaning. It's a dark saying. He knows we're not going to get a gun and kill a bull. Right? I would hope Dominic knows. Because you never know with Dominic, he'd be liable to be out there with a pistol. In the same way, when the people of the East wrote, all of these words have different meanings. Hidden meaning. But I can go in there, I can show you the documentation where it says wisdom is understanding the dark sayings. I'm not going to do that now. So even though he is a sister to Sarah, she is the daughter of his father. Now this is very, very important what I'm going to show you. She is not the daughter of the mother, so she is not the emotional desires of the spirit. She is the daughter of the father. Abraham's father came from a place called Ur, in a place called the Chaldees. The goddess of Ur was a goddess whose name was Sin. Do you see? Therefore, it is the emotional desires dwelling in the land of sin. That's what it means. See, sin doesn't mean drinking, smoking, sex, going to Atlantic City, all of that neat stuff that, we all like to do. I don't drink and I don't smoke, because I was going to tell them, that's sex? Going to Atlantic City? That's not bad either. But sin has nothing to do with any of that. Sin means dwelling in the emotions. See, now when we started this story, what's the first thing they said to Abraham? God said to Abraham, you're dwelling here. You got to move. You got to move out of your emotions. And so there is the understanding of who she is. So in verse 16, Genesis chapter 20, verse 16, Abimelech says, look, okay, he says to Sarah, look, I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. He is to thee a covering of the eyes unto all that are with you. In other words, Abraham, which means the father of the mind, becomes a covering to your eyes so that you can no longer see Sarah as that which is the emotional nature, but now you only see Sarah as that which is spirit. Abraham, which is the renewed mind, covers your eyes so you cannot see the one on the left, which is the emotions. Now you see her on the right, which is the spirit. All right? So we turn here, and we get a return to the right side in Genesis chapter 20 and verse 17. Now look what happens. Look. Remember Rachel was barren? She gave birth. Sarah was barren. She gave birth. Rebecca was barren. She gave birth. Manoah's wife was barren. She gave birth. Elizabeth was barren. She gave birth. Mary was barren. She gave birth. All of this which was barren was given birth. There is a part of you which is located at the right side of the right hemisphere of your brain, which is 90% of your brain, which does not function under your direction. It is barren. It is ready to give birth. This is the beautiful part of it. What did Abimelech? Abimelech, that part of you, saw that it was the emotional nature. And Abimelech said, no, I will not intercourse with the emotional nature. That means that you now are seeking your direction for the meditative state within you. And look at the beautiful thing that happens in Genesis chapter 20, verse 17. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bare children, for the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech. In other words, they were barren, but they are no longer barren, because they have not fallen down into the woman that was the emotional nature. They have not touched that which is the emotional nature, which means they have shut down, they have taken no thought, they have entered into the spiritual realm of meditation. The womb, the barren womb, has been opened, and the child of promise is born within. See? It always comes out the same in every story. When you follow the simple technique of meditation, of entering in, separating from the thoughts of the mind, there is something that explodes within you. Otherwise, you'll go through this life using 10% of your brain. That's all you'll ever get. And that's why it says in the Bible, I want you to tithe. Give me 10%. Real quick, and I promise you, real quick. In Genesis chapter 21, we come to the birth of Isaac. Remember, Sodom and Gomorrah have been destroyed. That means that that carnal aspect of the mind has been destroyed in meditation. All of the thinking process has been destroyed in meditation. It's not that you don't use it in your physical life, you do. But during this period of meditation, you have separated from that. And in Genesis chapter 21, verse 6, it means Isaac then comes to a point where he is going to be born. And Sarah said, God had made me to laugh. Because why? She's 100 years old. We know it's allegory. We discussed this, But it says in 1 Corinthians 21:21, in wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God, but by the foolishness of this preaching to save them that believe. And so that Isaac means that which laughs. There is a joy. And this is a beautiful part. Isaac is born, which is the right side. Do you remember Ishmael? Ishmael was born to Hagar, which means the left side. And here is the beautiful thing. Neither of these is more important than the other. Huh? The physical side is just as important as the spiritual side. Because what the heck is good of having a beautiful spirit if you don't have a life? And what's important about having a life if you don't have a beautiful spirit? They're equal. They're equal. And so here we see in Genesis chapter 21, verse 9, Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking, which means that there is an inability for these two sides to coexist. See, there's got to be a separation point, but they're each equally important. They can't be together. And then it says in Genesis chapter 21, verse 14, that Abraham rose up early and took a bottle of water and bread and gave it to Hagar and sent her out. And this is really cruel. Here is Hagar with this little child. And I want you to listen to this very carefully because how beautiful this is and how you go and you hear John Bradshaw, you go to the psychologist, you hear all of this stuff on television about the child within you, the wounded child within you. This is Ishmael. This is Ishmael who is the wounded child within you. Okay? And it says here in Genesis chapter 21, verse 16, look what it has. So Hagar goes and she sits down against him a good way off, and she says she cannot see this child. So here's Hagar here. She takes little Ishmael and puts him under a tree here to let him die. But she has to stay here because she can't listen to his crying. What this means is that when you take the child within you, the wounded child, out into the wilderness, which is meditation, you set that child down away from you. You take no thought. And then you just wait. The beautiful story says that God started to hear. He started to hear the child within you, the wounded child within you. This isn't something spiritual. This is the child that's been wounded by your parents. This is the child that's been wounded by your schools. This is the child that's been wounded by the government. This is the child that's been wounded by religion. This is the child that you're carrying around deep within you now that is struggling to find some type of peace, that is struggling to find some type of direction and can't because deep within inside there is something hurt and something crying. And this is the beautiful part here. In Genesis chapter 21, verse 18, God hears this child, and he says, fear not, arise, lift up the lad, hold him in your hand, for I will make him a great nation. It's not the spiritual part of you that's being saved now. It's that which is you, the physical part, the part that has sex, the part that goes to Atlantic City, the part that goes to the ball game, the part that marries, the part that eats. This that is within you has been saved. This is the manifestation. Meditation is not so you can drift off in a cloud somewhere. Meditation is so that you can live. You can live with your family. You can live with your children. You can live with your friends. You can experience. And then when you were willing to go into the wilderness and lay the child away from you by taking no thought, under that tree which is knowledge comes the voice within you that says, okay, I heard it. Lift it up. Carry it now. Lift it higher and higher and higher. For the child will be a great nation. And not only metaphysically, but physically, Ishmael has become a great nation because Ishmael is Arabia. Ishmael is the Muslim nation. Muslim nation. But Ishmael is also you. And the Muslim nation is always at war with the spiritual nation, but yet equally important to it. And equally must be nurtured. And then finally in Genesis chapter 21, 25, Abraham and Abimelech make a covenant. And then there's one last thing that happens here. It says in Genesis chapter 21, verse 25, Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. Have you gotten it yet where I'm at? Remember what we did with little, what's her name? Amber this morning. Took the water. Water is the truth. Huh? The well is the place, the deep place within you where the truth comes from. Huh? Abimelech, which represents the left side, took the well. Abraham said, "What'd you do that for?" Took it away in violence. Huh? And then it says in Genesis chapter 21, verse 26, Abimelech said, "What are you talking about? This is the first I've heard of this." It is your spirit that understands when truth is gone. The left side, which is your carnal nature, takes truth away, not intentionally, out of the violence and out of the horror and of the guilt and fear of the mind, and the well disappears. But it is then that which is the divine mind which recognizes and calls attention to it. And so then again, the two of them make a covenant between themselves. It doesn't mean this one was bad. It doesn't mean this one was good. Each has a part to play. Each serves a purpose. And it says in the beautiful part here as we wrap this up, Genesis chapter 21, verse 28, Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. You know what 7 ewe lambs are? Females. And what are the 7? The 7 chakras, which are the female aspects of the nerve centers that rise up the spine and react to that which is your meditation. And so those 7 are set, the 7 female aspects. And it says in Genesis chapter 21:30, "For these 7 shall thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have dug this well." Are you digging that well? That's your well. That's Abraham's well. That's the well deep inside of you. That's the one that Abimelech took, his group took. He didn't really want it to happen that way. He didn't even know it happened. You sometimes lose that which is the truth. You don't even know it's happening. But Abraham has put these 7 females, that's the 7 points, the 7 chakras of the nerve centers at the spine, and he puts this holy place of water, and he digs deep within you so that you can be restored and that you can be renewed. Thus the carnal and the divine coexist. But as it says in the story, then at that point they've got to separate and go their way. The left side and the right side will never be holding hands with one another. They'll each be doing their own thing. But you've got to understand that each have a very important purpose in your life. And the only trouble is the only one that you've ever known is Abimelech. The only one you've ever known is Cain. The only one you've ever known is Lot. You've got to be introduced to Abraham. You've got to be introduced to all of that which is on the right side. You've got to be aware and become enlightened to the fact that in many instances your well is gone. And you've got to say to Abraham, which is, I got to dig a new well. I got to put a new well and put those 7 little female lambs there, and I'll hold them close to me. And then the water will burst forth from deep within me, and I'll start to understand, and I'll start to be free, and I'll start to take a new life. And Hagar, that little beautiful part of you, which is the physical and has been so hurt, must go into the wilderness of meditation. And you must separate then from little Ishmael. Lay him under the tree of life and get away from him. That means take no thought. Don't listen. Don't be any part of it. But that which is within you, that which is above you, will hear that child cry, that wounded, broken child within you. And then the voice will come, okay, it's time to take the child back into your arms and go walking with your head held high, because I'm going to make that within you a great nation. I'm going to make that within you something special for you, for your family, for your children, for nature, for the universe in this Aquarian age, for all who come in contact with you. It is a new age. It is a new way. It is new life. It is new for you. And you know the good part? It's true. And you can prove it. You don't have to die to find it out. Enter within. Open the door. And the adventure breaks forth for you. Thank you very much for sharing this time about the strange story of Abraham and Abimelech. And what are we doing next week?